Hello. This video is going to be discussing a new list view mode that we have just um, implemented. It is called standalone mode. You can see it right here as a new mode that's added at the bottom. Uh, and it's very useful because the component that Salesforce provides out of the box is something that requires S objects. So whenever you are displaying data, it's got to be in an S object if you want to use it in a lightweight component, which is very useful for a lot of people. But sometimes you don't have information in an S object that you want to display. So if you just have random bits of data that you want to pull together, it's not part of a particular S object and you want to display that data, which for me makes a lot of sense because the whole idea is that you have data in disparate places and you want to bring them all together. It's kind of report-like, but the idea is that we're going to build on top of standalone as we move forward and incorporate a lot of what the list view capabilities have into standalone so that we can build actions off of those, off of that data, which has nothing to do with S objects. But anyway, so what I've got is an example, and of course, all of the code that I'm going to show today is available on GitHub. You can just go and look at it if you want. And the reason why I say that is because this mode is not for the faint of heart. It is not. You can't just click. You have to use code because you are going to be injecting data and injecting column information into the the list view component. So you have to do it using and knowing a little bit of LWC development. Okay, so get ready for it. Okay, so let's dive in and take a look at the component. It really is very similar to the other components from a look and feel perspective. What I've got here is in the dev examples. So if you do an upgrade or a download for Simply List Views, the dev examples here include a new tab called Standalone Example One. And it looks a little complicated here, but I'm going to go through everything and kind of describe how it is. But you can see here's the example below as to kind of how it works. I will say up front that a lot of the functionality right now does not work with standalone, just because of a lot of technical reasons. But I wanted to get this out there, and I wanted people to start looking at it and trying to use it. And if they come across functionality which isn't available, then let me know and I will look at incorporating it. Okay. Some functionality should, like um, pinning list views maybe, but others like inline editing, it's not ready yet because ultimately we're editing just random data rather than S objects. But anyway, okay. So for developers who are using it inside of LWC, you can see here is the standard approach to needing to use the column. Sorry, the components. You can see here the mode is standalone. I've given it a page name, and then the row data and the column data are really where we're injecting the data into the component. And so, this is all JSON for both the row data and the column data. And if I was to bring over and show you an example of how it looks, it's not very complicated. So here we have the column data as a JSON and how it actually looks if you make it all pretty. So you can see the label column width, which is in pixels, a name. So that's the name of the field column itself versus the label, which is pretty and shown to the user, and then the type, which is string. Type's important because it indicates how it's actually going to be displayed on the page. So obviously, if it's a Boolean, it's going to show a checkbox. If it's a string, it's just going to, all that kind of stuff. It tries to use exactly how it does in list views, in the standard SLVs. And then the row data is very simple. It's really just a text field. Okay, so everything needs to be converted into text in order to be able to move it into row data. Okay, but what I've also done is I've created some useful objects which can be used to store that data and make it easy for people who are developing to be able to kind of make that data what is needed, um, in order to push it to the front end for them. So we're going to go through that right now. So that's how the LWC will sit. But then if we go over um, to the actual coding itself. And this is all now available out there. So if you're interested in doing this kind of stuff, you can go and have a look and hit me up if you have any questions. But here you can see is the Simply UI list views component, and you can see here that it injects variables. Okay, and if we go to the test component, okay, the variables stand up here. You can see standalone column data, standalone row data. And then what I did was I just created two wired uh, methods to go and get data from my controller. Okay, and you can see here what I'm doing is the data that I'm getting in, which are objects, I'm stringifying, so I'm turning them into JSON, and then that information gets injected into the component. Okay, so it's expecting um, strings, JSON strings. It's not expecting anything else. So make sure that it's a string when it goes into the component. Okay, and I do that for both row data and for column data. Then in the controller, you can see what I've got here is I've got these objects which are available to be used. They are global. So in the case of somebody outside of this org, I believe what you would put in is simply LV dot, okay, for all of this information. So you'd have list view, wherever there was list view helper, you would have, simply LV dot because of my domain. Um, but uh, but anyway, so what I did was I created these components. It's one for column, and then there's one for row data, and it's really simple. You just put in your label name type column width, add it to a list of standalone column objects, and that's it. And then it just returns the data. And then on the controller side, the JavaScript controller side, it's going to stringify it. Okay, and then it's the same for the data. So we've got a standalone row here, and here are all the fields. So I just say row.add field and then the string values, and then I add the row at the end. And this is very similar to how Salesforce does it with theirs, except you've got to have S objects, and all that kind of stuff. So there we go. That's that. And then you return the rows. So here is the actual data. Now, of course, I'm hard coding it. You wouldn't probably hard coded. It would be a little bit more dynamic, and you might need to set these based on certain criteria. So I'm just making these up. The types are available. I will have to put what I'll probably do, as a matter of fact, is put the types maybe into the controller here or into the test component, because if anybody wants to use this, they'll want to look at the code. But all the types are available to use. Anything that is on the current list view component can be used. So so it should work appropriately. But there it is. There's the creation of a standalone. So what we're doing here again is we're using simply list view component without S objects. Okay, we don't have any queries. We don't have to do any configuration. There is nothing. There is no backend or list view that has been created to be able to handle this. I am building this on the fly. Okay, I'm taking this data that I am just hard coding in here. I'm giving it to the component and I'm saying render it. Okay, and it is going off and it is rendering stuff. Okay. So hopefully people will find this useful. If you do, it's missing functionality, definitely let me know, and then I will try and scramble and get that functionality available to people depending on the functionality. So, for example, inline editing might be tricky. What does that even mean? So we're gonna have to figure all that out. But anyway, there it is. Let me know what you guys think, and if there are any questions, FAQs are out there. This is all on GitHub, and happy list viewing.